Recording in progress.
So let's start with yesterday's lesson. Okay, very simple, very straightforward. Come on, you name the confluences. First confluence on the chat, fast, without wasting time. Market structure, perfect. I see all of you said it right. Come on, second confluence. Feep, well done. You guys are ahead of me. I love it. Third confluence. S&D, supply and demand zones, yes sir. Fourth confluence. Liquidity, well done. Very simple. Okay, extra confluences. Here the order doesn't matter. Point of control, imbalance, point of control, okay. Session liquidity, okay, those are the three. Point of control, imbalance. Session liquidity, and the eighth confluence, which is entry model, well done. Okay, very simple, very straightforward, like always, the same as always. The same as every single day. The only thing I trade is this right here. Okay, this list of confluences is what gives me my money when it comes to trading. Is the only thing I look at when I trade. On the same pair, at the same time of the day, the same confluences, step by step, forming confluences for extra confluences. Okay. So now let's just go ahead and break down yesterday's setup. When I woke up, price was more or less here. So let's have a look at it and yeah, let's just go ahead and throw on the confluences. Market structure, obviously price, we have this high right here, which price faked out due to news, therefore did not break out. We have this low right here. We also have this low right here. So we have a break of structure right here. Oops, sorry. Another break of structure right here. Okay, break of structure here. We do not have a break of structure. We actually have a takeout of liquidity. Price took out this high, did not break above, therefore just this is a liquidity takeout more than anything else. So the market structure is bearish. This indicates I am looking for sells. Okay, I'm essentially just looking for sells. So we just keep on. We actually have an entry model as well. Remind me later because we have an entry model which I did not mark out yesterday. So market structure bearish. We are looking for sells. I am not counting this high right here because this was a high done by news. Therefore, I am not considering this high when doing the analysis. So I'm going to be using this high, which also matches with New York opening more or less. So we know here is where the volume is at. Loads of people are entering, or loads of big players, okay, like institutions are entering their positions during New York opening. So we know there's volume here. If price leaves a supply or demand zone during New York opening, we know, or London opening, session opening mainly, we know there's volume there. So we are interested in this zone. So I pretty much try to force, okay, to some extent, I try to force a setup which accounted for a supply zone created here in the New York opening. So market structure is bearish, as I say, because we had New York opening around this area. Market structure is bearish, okay? I am going to be looking for sell, so my bias is bearish. So I'm going to use this high and this low to trace my feed. Okay, so this would be my FIP. Then we're looking for supply and demand zones within our premium price, in this case, because we are selling of 0.76% of our FIP. In this case, if we were just to stay on the 15-minute, we had this one. Okay, but this is too big. As you know, I am not trading with what a big stop loss. Therefore, I refined it. In this case, I went to the lower time frames, like the 5-minute time frame, and I actually grabbed this one right here. I actually grabbed this one right here, although later on you will see how price came directly to this one above. Okay, the sniper entry was on this one, but yeah, I used this one, but I also accounted for price instead of placing, well, you will see now, sorry, let's not skip steps. Then liquidity, obviously we have all of these lows, sorry, all of these highs to use as liquidity. Okay, we have all of these highs that were used as liquidity for all of the trendline traders, everyone that was selling here. Remember how liquidity works. You have plenty of lessons on it on the vault, so I'm not going to explain it. But yeah, we had this liquidity, this trendline liquidity right below our supply zone, right below all of our interest area, which is all of this area inside our premium price of FIP. Then we're looking at the extra confluences. So session volume profile. Actually, it was pretty close. So we could say we had the session volume profile to some extent. Okay. We know there was volume around this area. So we could argue we had it. Imbalance, there was no imbalance, as every single imbalance had been mitigated. Okay. Every imbalance had been mitigated. Then session liquidity. We actually did have some session liquidity. Okay, at this point we had session liquidity. But if we go further, during the overlap, price came to the zone. So the Asian high was still here. But at this point, right now we had session liquidity, which was right here. Okay, we had the Asian high left right here, right before the overlap. So we also had session liquidity, risky session liquidity, but we had it. Okay. And entry model, we could argue there was an entry model. Price created this new high, came down, consolidated, although the consolidation is not too clear, broke to the downside, and left this internal liquidity, which is the liquidity we are looking to trade from, or we could even argue all of this is the consolidation. Okay, it's not too clear, but yeah, price, we could have an entry model, price left this consolidation with this internal liquidity into our zone. So yeah, these were all of the confluences. We had what, 1, 2, 3, 4, obviously. Point of control, we could argue it was around this area, so we could argue we had it pretty close. Imbalance, no imbalance, session liquidity, we had this Asian high right here. And entry model, we could argue we had entry model to some extent. So this was pretty much the setup. Okay, very, very straightforward. And let's just see how price reacted to it. Obviously, sorry, we entered at 65. That was our first entry. And stop loss was at 67.5. Why did I place my stop loss at 67.5 instead of right at the tip of the zone? Very simple, because I accounted for price coming to the extreme supply zone, which was this one right here. Therefore, I gave it just some buffer from the zone in case price came to this supply zone. Instead of respecting this one, we would still be in the trade. And main target was more or less this liquidity, but as I don't place set take profits, I let price, I gave some more space to price. Sorry, I gave some more space for price to move. and we finally ended up closing at 150 pips, which was more or less there, okay? So let's just play it out. Price, you see, finally came to this supply zone, to the extreme supply zone. Therefore, luckily, I accounted in my stop loss for price coming to this extreme supply zone. And yeah, finally, it ended up playing wonderfully. So yeah, pretty much, this was the breakdown, or this is the breakdown of yesterday's setup. Very, very simple, very straightforward. I don't know, 150 pips was a bit more or less there. And yeah, very simple, very, very straightforward. Is it clear, guys? Is this clear? Let me know in the chat. As I say, at this point, you should all like just understand this crystal clear, because it's the same stuff as always. Clear, yes, yes, clear, perfect. So yeah, I'm going to make the live lessons a bit shorter, okay? Just covering the setups fast, because I want everyone that's new to just go into the lessons and view them, okay? Because if they are 40 minutes, 50 minutes, 1 hour, people just don't view the lessons. Therefore, they don't understand what we're trading, how are we trading, or why. Therefore, I'm going to try to make the lessons, the live lessons, shorter and more effective. So yeah, this is just breaking down yesterday's setup. I hope it's clear for everyone. You haven't updated the vault. The last live isn't uploaded. I will be uploading the lesson today now. Yeah, only fib level I have is the 764%. That's the only level I consider when trading. It's just a reference for me. The 0.764 is just a reference as to looking for supply and demand zones within this area, which is a good premium or discounted price. So as I said, team, everyone asking about entry model, session liquidity, volume profile, all of this has already been explained thousands of times in the vault, okay? Therefore, to make the lessons more effective, I am going to make them shorter, just covering the setups, because I've answered these questions plenty of times. You just have to look at the other lessons. As I always say, if you want to make it in trading, the least you can do is go over all of the lessons. The least you can do is really study the lessons, really try to understand everything I share on the lessons, because all of the questions have been answered. Therefore, if you really want to make it here, as I said, the least amount of work you can put in is just going over everything I share, okay? Instead of just expecting to know everything without really studying. It's really this simple. So yeah, guys, pretty much this is it for today's lesson. I'm going to keep it simple. Please, everyone asking about entry models, supply and demand zones, and so on. Everything is explained in the vault, guys. I cannot cover it every lesson because it's just frustrating for me to cover the same stuff all the time. I like to go over the setups, everything on supply and demand zones, everything on entry models, everything on whatever, on liquidity, and everything you're asking is explained in the vault plenty of times. Therefore, just go over it, okay? Today's setup, okay, let me stop recording this lesson then, and we will explain today's setup.